Connecting the dots.
From Faial to the world.
Hello, and a warm welcome from the middle of the Atlantic to the rest of the world. My name is Calvino, and I'm thrilled to present you with the first episode of Connecting the Dots, a bilingual podcast that wishes to connect these dots in the middle of the Atlantic, which we call home, to the Azorean community abroad. With the kind help of Azores High Radio, we hope to bring people closer to their roots by sharing stories like the one I bring to you today in both Portuguese and English. I'd like to welcome Margo Petiti and Manny Largo, our first guests and owners of a great story. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us. Bom dia.
Bom dia. You're most welcome. Margo is the daughter of a brave woman who immigrated from the calm parish of Fazenda in Faial to the vast land and fast pace of the United States of America. She settled first, you said, where she settled?
In New Bedford, Massachusetts.
New Bedford, Massachusetts, and then moved to...
Providence, Rhode Island later on.
Exactly. And the interesting part is she never forgot the Azores, as she and Margo, different from many others, made regular visits, which, with Margo's own words, made her fall in love with Faial.
Yes, that's correct.
So in 2022, Margo and Manny came all the way across the world from Rhode Island to Fazenda and to the same house that saw Margo's mom leave 60 years before. So tell me a bit more about that. When were your visits? How often were they?
So my family would come back every summer to visit Fayal. We'd come on vacation. We'd come for about 2 weeks or so. And my grandparents would be here as well because they would come back. And we'd always be working with my grandfather with plants, and he always had a garden. And my sister, I think she loved it too, but I really loved it and got into it and always wanted to come to Fayal and live here and have a farm. So I was really inspired by that and just fascinated by the whole thing.
So your regular visits, that's what inspired you and moved you to follow the path that led you here today with us.
Exactly. Yeah, I just looked so forward to those trips and spending time with family here and just being out, spending time in my great-grandfather's house. I remember they'd have festas there and we would go every summer, and I just loved everything about it.
And Manny, where are you from? You're from Rhode Island?
No, I'm from New York, Brooklyn, New York,
Okay.
and I went to Rhode Island for school. And that's how I met Margo over there. I was working at a restaurant that did seasonal cuisine, and she was friends with the owner, and that's how we became friends. And one time I invited her to go clamming, which you go in New England, you go to the ocean and you pick up crabs and clams. And Margo did a great job that day, and I was like very impressed. And then years later, I find out that she hated it. She just did it to impress me. But yeah, I really took a liking to Rhode Island because I just love the oceans, the beaches there. It's a lot nicer, more freedom.
And so you just fixed there with Margot, correct?
I stayed there after college, and then I worked at a couple restaurants, and we've been together since. We've been together 8 years now.
Yep, 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years, and then we got married after being together for 6 years. We always joke that we wanted to really make sure it was the right person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's really important. And Manny, let me ask you, did you ever knew there were these rocks in the middle of the Atlantic before?
I had no idea what the Azores were. Margo was like, we're going to Portugal, this and that. I had no idea what the Azores were. So, she asked if I wanted to come one time, and we took a trip here. And I think I was here for 5-6 days, and I just couldn't. I was just in awe. I mean, you see these islands just in the middle of the Atlantic, You see just cows everywhere, these traditional houses, and I just was inspired by it. I couldn't believe the atmosphere that I was in.
And before all that, did you ever think about leaving the U.S. to another country?
I think it was 4 years, 5 years into our relationship, we were fairly discussing moving to the Azores already. And I mean, I, without even hesitating, was thinking, yeah, let's do it. I want to go over there and we can start a farm or we could start something there. We weren't sure what we were thinking of doing here yet until we arrived, but primarily it was farming. And yeah, I was looking forward to it. Yeah.
And so the Margo and you, despite Margo having her roots really firm to the ground here in Fayal, you're both Americans and you had a whole life already in the United States. So I can only imagine it, despite being what you wanted, coming here had its challenges, of course. And so
Yes.
I'd like to ask you, what was the most difficult part about leaving a whole life behind and leaving the U.S. behind?
You want to go
Well, I think for Manny it was leaving his family. I think that was probably the hardest thing.
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I mean it was, but actually, because we're doing this, I actually have more time to see my family than, ironically, I have more time to see my family than I would if I was working at a restaurant. We have our own
Definitely.
business, so it was, but
Yeah,
definitely it was
because
challenging.
when we go back, we'll spend a month or two. So he goes and spends a couple weeks with the family. So he actually has more time with them now than he did before. Because before he'd go for a day or two here and there because he was so busy with work. But it did work out that he sees them more now that he's moved away. But for me, the challenges, I already had roots here and I had been coming here for years. So it wasn't really a culture shock to me. But the biggest challenges were involved with the farm and getting things started and the business. And those for me were the biggest challenges.
Starting over.
Yeah, just starting from scratch and trying to figure everything out. And that was the hardest
And
part.
even though the farm was already there, and so you'd come here every summer, so it was maintained, not maybe not as much as well as somebody that lived here for a whole year, but it was a lot in a better shape than maybe if it was just left behind. What do you think?
Well, no, because when I would come and I would be involved with vegetables with my grandparents, whatever, that was in their own small gardens. This farm had been fallow for over 50 years. So when we got there, it was grass the height of our waist. I mean, that there was literally nothing there. It hadn't been tilled or done anything for 50 years. So we really had to just get it plowed and just start from nothing when we got
So
here.
that was the hardest part of coming all the way from the United States. It
Well,
was
Well, I think that I went to school for horticulture. I've worked on farms in different countries and done a lot of work with that. And so when you visit the Azores for 2 weeks a year, which is what I had been doing, the climate seems very temperate. You think, oh, you could grow anything here. It's going to be so easy to grow things. When you get here, I mean, March, April, the first months, I think rained 20 out of the 30 days of the month, 25. So, and then the wind that we had experienced, the land that we have is on a hill, so it faces the south, but it gets a lot of really strong
Winds from the sea.
winds that come through there. So that was another issue. I had never experienced anything like that. And the thing is, it's problems that you're having from nature, so they're not even really solvable. I mean, you can do things to try to mediate them, but it's not things like I can't stop it from raining. I can't stop the wind from coming. So we had a lot of issues with that and learning and
you know what? A funny thing is, last year when we, a few months after establishing ourselves here, we came with nothing. We hadn't even a house yet that we're building, rebuilding now, her great grandfather's. But we just bought this truck, and we had all our seeds that we bought to plant, and it was in the back of the truck. And that one day it was pouring hard, and the seeds got wet. We raced to the truck, and they were all soaking wet. And once the seed gets wet, you have to plant it, or it's gone.
It's gone.
And so we had to plant tons of carrot seeds, and thank God we did. That was like a, gracias a Dios, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where we planted all those carrots, and that saved us for last year for the season and the farmers markets that we did and stuff. But I just wanted to say one thing about challenges that you were saying. And in the U.S., you have tons of availability of fruits and vegetables and flowers and cheeses at your disposal. And we all just take it for granted in the U.S. You have stracciatella cheese, you have fresh whatever, and here you don't have any of that. And I love that challenge because we've partnered up with a couple people that dairy farmers, and we get their milk, and we make fresh stracciatella cheese, mozzarella cheese, burratas, fresh breads. And now this morning we were talking about growing our own grain. There's a grain called kamut that we are interested in growing, so we can make our own breads with our own flours.
Okay.
So these challenges were that we left the U.S. with everything available, but I enjoy these hurdles because
Sure.
you just learn to make them yourself.
Of course, and it just makes you stronger and grow, and you can grow as a person and also as an entrepreneur as well. And that's all. Also, one thing that I find funny is that Margo picked up so from her trips and from her regular visitations here to the Azores, she fell in love with horticulture and growing the land. And I remember also I read it in the article that I saw in Correio dos Açores that despite having a lot of similarities with what you saw and what you had contact with when you were younger, it's a whole new way of farming.
Yes. Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I think that that's something we're learning. Like, I came here with a vision and I was like, I want to do this way. Like, I want to grow these vegetables on this land. I want to do it the traditional way. We'll have a plow come in once a year, plow the land, turn everything over, and do it sort of the traditional way. And my mom and my aunt would always say, on that piece of land, your great grandfather always kept the cows. He did not grow vegetables up there because the wind was too strong. And I would say, no, we're going to do it. It's fine. I'm going to do it my way. But after 2 years of that, it's actually, you see that is correct.
Yeah.
Like, they are correct about that. So now we're going through the process of moving our plantings to a more protected area on the farm where he used to do all of the growing. We're moving our vegetables down to that area. We're going to be making a kitchen garden, and we're doing a no-till system, which is what they used to do. They didn't use these huge plows to turn soil over. It was they did less plowing and kept more of the soil structure, which is good for the plants and good to hold moisture and good for the roots. So, and building healthy soils. So we're going to change our system. We're really making a lot of changes this year. And next year we'll have that system up and running. And we think that we'll have even better results because we have to grow a lot of stuff to get X amount of vegetables. We have to grow almost 2 times that because there's a lot of loss that
Birds,
you have.
rabbits.
We lose a lot of things, so
Yeah.
you have to grow almost twice as much. So we're thinking with the no-till system in the more protected area of the farm, we'll have a higher success rate with that, and we feel like that'll be better.
What would you say is the big difference from what you saw your grandparents doing?
Yeah.
What's the big difference to your system?
So I think ours are going to be in raised beds, so that will be a little bit different. But I think we're moving closer to their system, actually. I think when we started, we were kind of doing our way. We did how they do in the US, and this is how I did it on the farms there. And I was very adamant, like, we're going to do it this way. But then talking to people and seeing how they do things, because we talk to a lot of the people that live here, farmers or people that have gardens, and we see how they do things. And now we're learning that that is actually a better way. So we're converting the way that we plant and the way that we grow to those practices. And we've learned things like growing by the cycles of the moon and when to plant. And you talk to these old timers
Yeah.
and they tell you all the, and I'm like, I don't know if this is true or not, but we'll try
But
it.
it works,
And we
right?
tried
But
it,
it's
and-
working for someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it's interesting talking to those people and learning those practices. And my grandparents used to always talk about that. The moon is half full, plant this. It's half empty, plant that, or,
Sure.
whatever.
And so the ancient knowledge and also your knowledge from your degree and from what you've learned, it's the perfect marriage, right?
I think, yeah, and it's being open to what they're saying. Like when I got here, I was like, oh, I've studied this. I don't need this information. Like I know what I'm doing. But then as you go along, you're like, this is different. This is not what it was like.
Yeah.
You really do have to listen to what people are saying
And adapt.
and adapt. And when we got here, that's not what I thought we were going to be doing.
And what really interesting is we've talked to a couple people from the island, farmers, and they ask us like, how do you grow your carrots? I can't grow carrots in my land to save my life. And they're like our neighbors in our land. So it's just amazing. Every piece of land is different. Some can grow beets, like we can't grow beets. We try growing beets, different colors, different places, different times. Couldn't get them to grow. But someone else can grow them so easily in the same island, but in just maybe a different location of the island. So
That's
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's what Margo said before. It's the unpredictability of the islands, and so people have been living here as far as the 1500s, and so they also had to adapt. And I think the thing that you need to do is always adapt and try to learn as much quickly as possible
Yes.
from people that are already here, and well, know these lands for a lot of time, because like you said, every piece of land is different, and everything from your lifestyle in the U.S. I think might have been a big turn, right?
Yeah.
A huge turn, but I've actually enjoyed this lifestyle here in this island. Just not even just with the food, like we're saying, but the people is really amazing. That you go by and you say, bom dia, boa tarde, and for me, I'm enjoying that I can speak a third language now too. It's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've really been enjoying it here.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to talk about a quote that I found in the article, and it says, "It's much less lonely here than in the United States." And so, especially for Manny, a man from Brooklyn,
Yeah.
how is that possible?
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know. It's just that you walk down here and, okay, here's a good example. You're in New York and you walk down the street. You see hundreds of people, but they don't know who you are. You don't know who they are. They don't bother to stop to talk to you, which is normal. It's strangers. But here in Faial, there's a little less than 15,000 people. I still am surprised I haven't met everybody because it's such a small island. But we walk down the street and you just say good morning. You feel like you've met someone, and you interact with the cleaning crew of the park, or you interact with the coffee lady at Pico Dos. So I enjoy those interactions. Or like when I'm in the Continent in the supermarket. And you're looking for chicken, and I'm trying to figure out how to say chicken in Portuguese, and now I know it's frango. But I enjoy those interactions. You're talking to people versus you're just walking one street to the other, and it's just kind of lonely. Here you're more personable, and I like that.
And maybe you think that proximity in between people that helped you settling here and thrive here. Do you think?
For sure.
I think so, and I think people have been very welcoming to us. We'll see people and they'll say, "Oh, you guys are from Fazenda," or "You guys are, oh, you're doing a really great job." They're very supportive of us and really nice. It could be the cashier at Continent, or it could be anybody just walking down the street, and we feel like the community has really welcomed us.
Yeah.
So that's been really nice.
And you also said you learn from them,
Yeah.
from other farmers, but they also learn from you.
I don't know. Maybe they. I don't. I mean, if they saw how we did.
Well, I think they have. Last year, we got the opportunity to do farmers markets, and here's one. Is the funniest thing is that we started doing selling vegetables, carrots, and lettuces, and we did some form of prepared foods as well. And we would do like a lentil hummus and curry vinaigrette. And one Friday, the farmers markets are on Saturdays. So one Friday, the day before, I'm making the hummus and my machine broke. And so I'm telling Margo, I can't make it, but no one's gonna notice. Yeah, they're gonna even care. It's fine, whatever. The next day comes, we had at least 6 people ask, "Where's the lentil hummus? Why don't you have it?" And I had to go through this whole spiel. Oh, my machine broke. I'll bring it back next week. But it's like people, like true Portuguese people, that like natives here that are looking for the hummus. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And so I mean, they're also learning. I mean, one time we're selling carrots that are young carrots. They're not like these big horse carrots. And so a local came by and told Margo, "You guys should be growing this a little bit longer. They're not the right size to pick yet." And Margo had to explain, "No, this is the right size that we are picking them because this is a variety that we're doing, purple carrots, etc." And so we're kind of showing them and we're learning from them as well. So I guess we're teaching people.
Yeah, I guess so. We are.
I mean, it's the only way to motivate the island to go further and explore other things. You just expose them to things and see what happens. Yeah.
And I think with Manny's the dinners that we do and Manny's cooking, I think that's something that people come and they're tasting a lot of different things, and they even ask him how to make something or how did you do this. So I think maybe in that sense also they
Do you
they
get a
learn
lot
from
of
us.
locals also
Yes.
trying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a
Quite a
lot of
bit, yeah.
locals, and we
Wow.
get a lot of repeat people. They'll come back, and
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
very
we're-
thankful. We have a couple people that came at least 6 times already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
that just keep coming back. It was funny because we started the year and we thought Manny was going to do one menu and then basically keep it for all the dinners that we do, because it'll be all different people. It won't really matter, but the people
Yeah.
keep coming back, so he has to keep changing it. So every week he's done a different menu this entire summer
Yeah.
because you don't want the people to eat the same thing when they come.
Which personally, I enjoy doing that. Margo says you need to keep a regimented menu, and I agree, to keep it sustainable. But like, I like to just experiment with different things. I can't help
Sure.
myself. I just keep going out and thinking of different sourdoughs to make or different dishes to make with cucumbers or carrots. So I kind of enjoy
That
it.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, we have about, I would say, a third to half the people that come are locals, or they come from Piku, or they come from this area. And we also do private events. People will ask us to go to the locals, will ask us to go to their house and do private events for their families and that sort of thing. So we've been really, we've been received well, I think, with the local people.
And I just love to express it. And so, for example, when we first came here, I was making these sourdough breads. I'm trying out the different flours that we have in the island that works best for my sourdough. And I made one time, and we had dairy farmers. They're our neighbors, and they come in their ATV up there, and then they stop to say hello. We always say good morning, and I told him, come here for a second. And his name is Helder. And I said, Helder, ven aquí. And so then he comes. And I give him a piece of bread. He's like, "What is this?" He looks like this is very like antigua, like antique bread.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Yeah, it's a sourdough." Margo's explaining to it, and so he looks at it. And Margo's like, "Take a bite." And so then he takes a bite. He's like studying it, and now he's like, he has his hand on his side hip, and he's like, "All right, I got to sit down." So he takes a seat. He's like, "This is really good," and like it was just great to see that, because I want to see how the locals receive the food. Like, are they interested in it? Because I want to find a direction to go to, and so that just. I hit the nail on the head, I think, with that bread, and we're continuing progressing, making it better and changes and stuff.
It's interesting because our dinners, we do a 14-person table and everybody sits together. So it's native people sitting next to tourists, sitting next to whoever. And one example is we had two tourists that were looking for their great aunt's house in like Ceylon or something like that. And there's a native person sitting at the table that's like, I'm from Ceylon. I know that house that you're looking for. And they connected. And it happens all the time. Like this other couple was there and they were planning a party on the island. They were from Massachusetts, and they're sitting there. And then the person whose event space they're planning the party at, who's a native, he walks in.
They happen to sit next to each
so
other.
they sat next to each other. So they enjoyed each other's company. So one guy was from the U.S. He sang opera at the end of the dinner because he's an opera singer. So you never know what's going to happen because it's all these people together.
And we love it.
And it's awesome. People just connect, and sometimes they'll have conversations with all the 14 people talking, getting involved in one conversation, and it's a lot of
build
fun.
Relationships. And this idea is, didn't come out of our heads. We actually took this idea off of the festas that we see in Faial, where you have all these the people having the sopaj in the community table, and everyone's talking, and you see the vecinos, from Granja or from Fazenda, and you talk and you make friends. And that's how we thought of the concept of having a group of people that don't know each other, that you happen to pass by down the street, and you make friends. And that's what we enjoy. It's just bringing the community together.
Fantastic. Still have one more question, and so I wanted to ask you if you feel like people that, like your mom, get the urge of immigrating. Do you think they ought to do it to the U.S.? Do you think it's still worth it?
I think the U.S. is great. I know we go back and visit for a couple months, and we love being there, and we enjoy it. You have everything at your fingertips. We take a day trip to New York City. You have everything there that you could want. But I also, a big thing that I notice is like when we're in the U.S., you're constantly on Amazon, let's say, like, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, I need this, and that's constant. But here, we have Amazon here, but we don't really use it. Like, you don't feel like
it doesn't
this.
work.
Well, we've done okay
It works,
with it.
But you don't feel like you want it.
You don't feel
you're
like
not-
you want
you're not shoved down your throat. But if I may interrupt, I'm going to say something that I tell my nieces. They live in Pennsylvania now, and I tell them, what's the important thing for you to do is experience as much as you can in life.
Definitely.
So the people here in Fayal, if they have the opportunity to go to the U.S. for any reason, go not just for the better life, but for the experience, regardless of what happens.
Definitely.
Because that's how, for myself, I've learned a lot, just being thrown and experienced in these moments. And I've learned a lot just from being thrown in there. So I definitely would say, if you had the opportunity to for the experience, for sure.
I'd like to really thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was a really outstanding conversation, and I really loved meeting you and getting to know you. And maybe also the people at home can too.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
this was
for
Connecting the
having us.
Dots.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank once again Manny and Margo for being here today, and wish you all the best.
Thank you
And
so
happy
much.
happy growings.
Thank
Obrigado.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.